Yo, how's it going, guys? It's Richie Unicorn Cole here, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. We are back with some more, I guess, spell teasers and more spell rework. So, if you didn't like the previous changes, especially concerning Dark Surge, I'm here to tell you now that you are not gonna like these new changes. So, buckle up, and if you obviously saw in the thumbnail, yeah, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. Over here, I did want to show you the active roster for our Discord. We did the Azteca raid yesterday, and it was really fun. We did primarily the secret boss, and we got a few energy elixirs and triple animus elixirs from that, and also a few badges, so that was pretty fun. But yeah, we have one for Friday, and this is going to be the Cabal's Revenge raid. Then we have the Ghastly Conspiracy raid. Still at a earlier time. We're doing this for one of our EU players, and I think after this, like, if we still just cannot get a full roster, then unfortunately we're just gonna have to do a different time, like the old later time. I would recommend anybody that's on the EU side of the world would just join a EU specific guild, just because, you know, those time zones can align more with what people are trying to do. But this will probably be the last time that we try to do an early raid. And then on Sunday, we have the Voracious Void raid. So those are the three raids. And if a roster doesn't fill up, then it will be a free day. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, and again, talking about these new spell changes. Like I said, if you were not a fan of what we talked about previously, you're definitely not going to like these changes, I don't think. So let's talk about those previous changes right now, in case you haven't seen that video. But over here, we have Donate Shadow, which, in my opinion, I think this is probably one of the best changes that they've done in a very long time, and especially for this spell, because now you can actually give one Shadow Pip to a target without it requiring 2 Shadow Pips and 75 accuracy. And so this is actually a really huge change, and this is really beneficial. I think I can see a lot of people trying to run this, or trying to get people to get that Shadow Pip, where Shadow Pip generation can be very inconsistent from time to time. And then over here, we have Dark Surge, which is the one that has a lot of symbols and just a lot to, you know, take in. So over here, right, we have Dark Surge. It's still going to give you 2 pips. However, these pips are going to correlate to your school and to your magic weaving school as well. If you don't have a magic weaving school, it will probably just give you a power pip. But also, the drawback for this is that it's going to take 10% of your total health, right? Which a lot of people in the comments, I read all y'all's comments, by the way. Y'all said that 10% was a little bit much, which, yeah. So, Cam did hear the news talking about how, you know, most people would probably just use power. Well, this is when it gets a little fun. This is when it gets a little fun. Let's see which one. That's Dark Pack, so let's go over here to Empower. Right? This is when it gets fun. So Cam teases the updated Empower on his live stream. By the way, you guys can follow Cam on his little Twitch stream. He does these Twitch streams from time to time. Anyway, Cam says, one of the things I saw was that a lot of people were saying, in response to the health consumption on Dark Surge, oh, I'd rather just use Empower, and guess what? So it gives the same amount of pips, but it takes 1% of your health. And this is what the new Empower is going to look like. So now it's going to take 5% of your total health and 3+ pips to yourself. Right? So pretty much the same spell. However, you're just going to be taking a significant amount of damage doing this. And it's basically like a trade-off. So Cam says the main reason that self-damage was flawed, specifically on this spell, was that people would use it as a weakness counter, which is not meant to be. The self-sacrifice of health, is supposed to be a value to add to the spell, and not a weakness counter. Cam also says with this change, hopefully that will help weaknesses become more valuable as opposed to shields. So, There you go. That's Cam's explanation on it. I'm sure we'll see tons of essays from that. You can make your own opinion on whatever that is. So have fun with that. And no, this is not going to change the treasure card pricing of Empowers. They're not going to be touching that for a while, as rightfully so, because, you know, I can't even imagine if they did touch it. I think that happened one time and it was actually like a bug, and like everybody in the Gamma trading post was like selling Empowers up the wazoo. I was like, what is going on, you know? But yes, Empowers sell price wise are fine. Now spell change wise, I think it's like one of the second or third changes we've seen with Empower. I remember like one time they changed it to like moon damage and stuff, and now we have the 5% of your health. And like Cam said, this isn't gonna remove your weakness at all, because it's just gonna take 5% direct of your health. It doesn't matter how much resist you have. It doesn't matter how much health you have. It's just gonna take 5% of that, and then you'll get your 3 pips. So that is basically the new Empower. And then over here we have the new Dark Pack, which again a lot of you guys are not gonna like, because again it's that 5% health. And they actually renamed the spell Dark Tribute, which I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of cold, bro. That's a really cool name. I'm not gonna lie with you, bro. So Cam teases the Dark Pack, now renamed Dark Tribute. So this one I find cooler. Dark Tribute, which you may notice is a renamed version of Dark Pact. The reason for the rename is that we are making Shadow Packs a prevalent mechanic that we don't want to be confused. The blades are buffed to 35%, which is pretty nice. And I think this is just a buff to the card overall. So yes, it might do more damage to you, but as a death, it won't, because the old version would probably do more than 5%. So this change also means that if you have this and the pet version of, you know, Dark Pack or Dark Tribute, then you can stack both of them, and the first one won't remove the other one, which is pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool. So yeah, that's awesome. And yes, and you know, of course, the elephant in the room is that it's gonna take 5% of your health. So that is the harsh reality of these new spells, unfortunately, right? And I thought to myself, and I think it was mentioned in our raid yesterday, when in the Crying Sky raid, one of the players in our guild mentioned how this is kind of following the lore a little bit with some of these sacrifice spells and whatnot, you know? And it is pretty interesting to kind of see the approach that KI is going with these spells. In my personal opinion, I just really don't think I'm just gonna be honest. I don't do PvP. I don't care about PvP. I don't really care much. I will say this will definitely affect kind of like advanced combat, you know, especially if you're raiding, because now if I use Dark Tribute or Dark Pack, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, I'm already using pet cards to begin with. So, you know, what Cam is saying now, if you have the Dark Pack spell or as an item card, I think you should be fine, quite honestly, because most of the time in the raids, I'm using 90% of item cards. So yeah, this is just a spell overall for like death wizards that have the spell trained. Now, I would go up a notch and say, I think it would be cool to kind of see these spells as trainable spells, because we already have Rebirth as a trained spell. Like anybody can learn Rebirth and stuff like that. It would be really cool to just kind of see other wizards kind of run this in a sense, especially for support wizards. Because honestly, at this point, it's 2025. I just think every single spell at this point should just be trainable. I feel like the whole like exclusivity of like schools have been dead for quite a bit. Of course, anybody can train Dark Surge, but again, it's that 10% health that a lot of people are not vibing with, because 10% is a lot. That is a lot of health that you're tanking. And obviously, if you're a tank wizard like me or a healer support player, it's not really going to matter, because you can just cast a Pigsy and you can just heal yourself back up. And if you don't have Pigsy, you can just use a Dryad or a Regenerate or a Rebirth. Like, you can just heal yourself, probably even with a Fairy, and you should be fine. but it will definitely depend on the player's playstyle on how they use these specific spells from now on, considering the amount of health that they are going to lose from it. So in a sense, you're getting a big reward, but also a big type of risk. You know, you're taking damage for yourself. But in my opinion, it doesn't bother me too much because I've been playing this game for a very long time, even before Spellmint. And, you know, I think everybody, well, including me, personally for me, I'm just kind of used to them changing spells. Like, if I see a spell change, I'm just like, oh, that's no surprise. And it's no surprise that they've changed these spells either. I think the one that I am really happy about the most would definitely have to be the Donate Shadow. Because that spell in general, like when it first came out, was terrible. Like, and I don't know what they were cooking up back in the day, but now this is actually like a super viable spell, and I actually have a reason to put it in my deck now, especially if people are trying to get their Shadow Pips. Like, this is a great spell change. The other ones, though, I'm sure in my comment section is going to be questionable. You got Dark Surge, which is going to take 10%. You got Empower, which is going to take 5% now. And then you got Dark Tribute, which is also going to take 5%. And it just raises the bar for how many other spells we might see that are also going to start taking a percentage of your health, because there are a lot of spells out there that where you take damage and give something back. I wonder if Sacrifice as well is also going to be included with that whole like percent nerf or whatever it's called, nerf buff, whatever you want to call it. If you guys don't know what the Sacrifice spell is, it's basically when you take a little bit of damage and then you give some health back to a player. So I'm curious to see if that spell would also be affected. But also, I am curious to see if that spell could be trainable. Honestly, the one thing I do want to see in the future is just all these spells become trainable. That's what I want to do, because I got these training points, I got the Spellmint, and, you know, I barely even have to use Mythogen. That's why I'm not even training for Mythogen at this point. But I am curious to see, like, their approach on this, you know. So far, I'm actually quite impressed. I know a lot of people are really devastated, but quite honestly, it's getting a little interesting. It's getting really interesting. There's a lot of drawbacks from using these powerful spells now. So we'll definitely wait to see how it works in Test Realm, and especially see how the vibes go with that, which I think Test Realm, I think should be around like maybe early October or like earlier than that. I don't think earlier than that, but maybe around October. But who knows? I'm excited to check it out. We'll see what happens. But until then, I will see you guys later. And I know you guys are going to be texting a lot. Let me know in the comments about all of this stuff. I want to know all your thoughts. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe and like the video and all that fun stuff. But yeah, until then, I will see you guys later. No console news. Obviously, it's still in the Xbox Game Preview Beta. Free membership. We already talked about that. Still the birthday event going on. So make sure to check out all the stuff in the Crown Shop. All right, I'll hit y'all back. Peace out.